Welcome to The Road Reflected with Nicole Wakeland. Automotive from the lighter side. That means cars, but also cookies, coffee, and pie. Up first, what's Nicole behind the wheel of this week?
I am driving the 2023 Toyota RAV4.
Ooh. Oh, what a feeling.
I know, that is like such a callback. I can't believe you remember that campaign.
Toyota.
When was that from?
I feel like it was the 80s,
Was it
maybe
the
early
80s?
90s.
Oh,
and they'd rotate the logo so they were jumping through the O. Do you remember that?
I remember the jumping. I remember they'd all jump. It
They
was
jump
like,
right through the
"Yay,
O.
We're jumping for joy because we
Toyota.
have
Yeah.
It sounded just like that, I'm sure, if you played that old
did.
clip of an old
Yeah,
commercial.
find it on YouTube.
Okay, so I am in the Toyota RAV4. It's in the Adventure trim. There aren't a lot of changes this year. This is just your typical old model year, new model year changes. So there's a little bits of changes here and there. This comes as a gas, a hybrid, or a plug-in hybrid that they call the Prime, like the Toyota Prius Prime.
Monroney Moment.
So the Monroney Moment, we have a 2.5 liter four-cylinder. This is the gas-powered version of the RAV4. 203 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque, 8-speed automatic transmission, all-wheel drive. The base price on this for this trim is $33,770. Once you add the little options that were on the one that I have and also the destination, $39,894. So it squeaks in at just under $40,000.
So how did like pickup feel? I mean, it's a crossover, but 203 horses seems reasonable.
Yes, so it's a reasonable amount of horsepower. Here's the thing. So this is not a performance car. This is not something for someone who's really, really focused on, I want the most power possible. I want aggressive acceleration. I want handling like I'm driving some little sporty thing. That's not what this is. This is a vehicle for people who need a fuel-efficient crossover that seats 5 people, that has good room for people, good room for cargo, and is affordable. That's what this is. So it goes 99% of the time you're going to be fine. About the only time that I sort of was so-so on this was when I was on the highway and I had to accelerate very hard, like when you sort of mash the pedal to the ground because you want to like, oh gosh, I got to get over, I'm going to miss my exit, that kind of thing. It takes a second to realize you want to go. You're like, mash. You're like, come on. And there it is. You're like, oh, the car's like, wait, she needs power. So it will go. It just takes a second. And when it does that, even though it has an automatic transmission and not a CVT, it is a little bit noisy. It's like, wee, like it's letting you know. So you feel confident your little RAV4 is working, but boy, is it working.
Yes.
So that's, so driving it is fine. Handling and all that, pretty much typically what you'd expect from a crossover. It's crisp enough, it's sharp enough, but this isn't a car for people who want an especially sporty drive or really looking at those driving dynamics. It's more like the family car.
It can haul.
It can, yeah. So
Stuff.
It can haul stuff. In fact, we hauled quite a bit of stuff because our daughter came back from college and had stuff to shove into it when we got back from the airport. We shoved it all in there, her included. The three of us and the stuff. We folded just half the seats because they split 60-40, which is always awesome because then you still have one person in back and you can still make use of like expanding that cargo area.
It was 5 very large suitcases.
It was 5
very as big as they get.
It's gigantic suitcases.
Yes.
So what you actually technically have for cargo room, if you had the rear seats still up, there's 37.5 cubic feet. And if you folded the rear seats entirely down, 69.8. So that's a good amount of cargo room.
That feels like a lot.
I mean, we had that packed pretty full, and it was still like you could have still wedged some stuff here and there. So I feel like it's really versatile if you want that crossover that's big enough to manage people, but also when you want to put stuff in it, whether it's your kids' stuff coming home from college or you have some little weekend project you want to shove stuff in there. You're buying 1 million plants at Home Depot because it's summer, right?
That's right.
Isn't that what
Spring.
you do?
It's time to plant
right?
things.
It's summertime. So I like the from a versatility point of view, this does exactly what a vehicle this size is supposed to do. I think right now, Russ, it's actually the best-selling. It like beats out the Honda CR-V.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, the CR-V is my little. I
think
own
it
the
has.
CR-V, so
yeah,
I have
so
to
it's
kind of.
like they were having a battle, and I'm pretty sure
They were always. I remember when I was buying my CR-V, I was looking at RAV4s. Now this is back when they were both SUVs. They both shrunk.
Yeah.
Now
Well, they
they're CRVs,
changed
they're
everything.
crossovers.
Well, in the Honda used to have the tire on the back.
Yeah, so like a little. It was like a
right?
little. Yeah, it felt
was
very much like
because
an
that's
SUV.
rugged. You put a tire on the back, you're suddenly a Jeep.
Had a little
you're rugged.
sunroof. It was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
so it was pretty cool. So that car served us well, but it's entirely different. You look at the old one, look at the new one, and they look nothing alike, which is kind of fun. But in addition to this, they've got some like comfortable features inside for people. So they have a larger base touchscreen this year. It used to be 7 inches, now it's 8. And there is an available 10.5 inch screen, which is what we had. So it's a nice large touchscreen.
Say, I like a good instrument cluster. So,
well, this is a touchscreen.
But the whole thing, I mean, just looks cool.
Yes, and that's the other part. So they have there's a digital instrument cluster. There's the standard thing is a digital instrument cluster. It's 7 inches, but there's also an optional one that's 12.3 inches. So it's big.
Yeah.
I think a digital instrument cluster looks really cool. I think it makes any car look a little bit more of the moment and a little more upscale. When I get into a car now that actually has like physical gauges, it feels like I've stepped back into like 1984.
Well, you can pull it off if you're trying to go like sporty. Like you can do physical gauges if you blend it with digital. So I think you can have like, I've seen some cars like the digital middle.
Yes, right. So you have cool. like gauges on the
like physical ones because you want to have that retro feel.
But then the center part is little information.
But if you go all analog, then you look a little old.
Yeah, it just looks a little old. So I feel like, and I also feel like it just gives you a little bit more of a premium feel, especially when you get this one, 12.3 inches. That's a chunk of digital.
It feels nice to be in it. Like it doesn't feel like a low end crossover. It feels nice.
No, and it's. I mean, and to be fair, this one, the one that we've been driving this week, it's $40,000.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
So it's not like it's not like an entry level crossover. It's not the one that you buy when you're just like, I need a crossover. I'm also like a new college grad and I don't have a lot of money. So it gives you an idea. You know, it gives you something a little bit fancier, a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
And
it has the wireless Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto, which I really like.
I like wireless tech, but you know what I sometimes don't like about the wireless smartphone stuff? When you connect it to your car, it can be a little slow. Like when you plug in your phone, boom, it tends to know that you've got it. When you're waiting, sometimes you're like, Bueller.
Yeah, but it's kind of nice just sit in the car and eventually it just works.
It does.
I mean, it takes a moment, but by the time you back out of the driveway, as long as it all works.
I get stressed out. You know, when I get stressed out, like I'm trying to go somewhere, I've hopped in, trying to go, I'm like at the valet stand at like a place, like a hotel or something. There's 9 million people honking at me, beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, wait, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. Hold on. My Apple CarPlay is working itself up to showing me directions on my screen. So that's when I'm not a fan.
So I have a question for you, though, about this whole situation between the crossover and the SUV and the minivan.
Yes.
I know we talked about this before. And I get that the crossover and the SUV, it's really about SUVs are kind of more capable now than
it's not really the capability. I think people, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that you can say it, like, oh, is it a body on frame thing, or is it this, or is it that, between trucks and SUVs and crossovers. But really, I think of it more about size. People think of crossover, you're crossing over, right? From a sedan to an SUV. It's kind of small.
But it's smaller than SUV.
It's smaller.
And it's generally, like, when would you choose a minivan over a crossover?
Well, it's way bigger. A
minivan's way bigger?
Minivans always have 3 rows of seating. Crossovers typically have 2.
Because I feel like at $40K, you're kind of in minivan territory, right?
You might be, but it's not a matter of price. It's a matter of what you have for seating. So crossovers typically 2 rows, although I think there might be some that call themselves like mid-size SUVs that might have a 3rd row or even something. Sometimes there's an optional 3rd row, but typically crossovers are 2 rows of seating, but they've got that upright sort of, they're not low like a sedan, and they have, you know, a tailgate in the back so that you can do more cargo versatility. So that's typically a crossover. An SUV tends to just get bigger all around, even if it has 2 rows, and it very often adds in a 3rd row. So 3-row SUV versus minivan. Now you're talking, because minivans still have that huge size. They have 3 rows of seating. They have the ability to carry cargo. So yeah, it's probably not minivan or crossover. It's probably 3-row SUV or minivan.
Got it.
Okay, everyone, if you like what you're hearing, then go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe either on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher of choice.
And there are many choices. We just hope you choose the one that has our show on it.
That's all we're asking. Simple ask. So the second vehicle I drove, I went to San Diego to drive this.
Ooh, it's always sunny in San Diego.
Except some of the time I've been there and it's pouring rain. But mostly it's sunny in San Diego. So I drove the VinFast VF8.
Ooh.
VinFast is a Vietnamese car company. They started in Vietnam, I want to say it was 2017. So they're still a pretty new automaker in the grand scheme. Started off making gas cars. Now they've gone electric. And to the U.S., only as an electric vehicle maker.
Oh, so there's no VinFast ICE vehicles?
Yes, no VinFast with just a gas engine. You only have the VinFast electric. And I drove this for just a few minutes back in September in Vietnam, because they brought us out there to sort of give us a big view of the company and the car and the country. And it was a really interesting trip. Learned a lot about the people in the country and the car, saw their factories, but it was a really short time in the car. I mean, maybe 10 minutes. It was just a taste. And we knew that's what it was going to be. I wasn't super impressed. I felt like they still needed to do a lot. I kind of felt like it wasn't quite done. They developed this very quickly and put a lot of effort into it, but it felt like, oh, it needs a little more help. So now they have brought it to the US. They have actually shipped 300 have been delivered. So there's 300 on the road here in the United States.
So there are people out there driving VinFast about.
There are people out there driving VinFast about, and they gave us a chance to drive them. And they had the Canadian and the United States media out there to drive the VinFast. And I actually drove with the Canadians because my schedule wouldn't let me go with the Americans. So it was cute because everyone says about instead of about. And they really do. And every time they say it, I sort of giggle like, hee hee, it's not a stereotype.
Do they say a lot of A's or just a boot?
I heard only one A the whole time.
Yeah.
So
Canadians generally can avoid saying A, but the about
is a genuine accent thing. Like their Canadianness.
So you find a Canadian spy.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. He said a boot. He's Canadian.
Right.
Busted. And then because he's a Canadian, he'd say, sorry, I'm going back now.
Right.
I love you, Canada. I say this with great love. So I had a bunch of Canadians with me on this wave. So this time we had a proper drive. We had a good couple of hours. We had each car. We had the car to ourselves. We could drive. We had a drive route that took us through twisting, turning roads. It took us on highways.
You really got the feel for this thing.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I need to say this before I talk about it. I root for every car company and every car to succeed. It is not a small endeavor. It is not cheap to do this. Especially
moving into a new market.
Right.
And with a whole new class of vehicle.
And whether you're Ford or General Motors or you're a new guy like VinFast or Rivian, it's hard to make a car. And I feel like, and I hate saying this, I don't feel like this is really ready. I feel like it needs a lot of work, despite the fact that 300 of these have already been delivered. And I think another 1,500 or so were just about to come off of a boat. Literally, it was that close. The reason is everything is almost there, but not quite.
Like just fit and finish, or is it like everything?
Everything.
Oh,
it's so hard to say this, and I feel like they could fix all these things. Like nothing feels unfixable.
But it's not just software.
It's not. No, I mean there's some of it that's software. The big software thing, the ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, which we all just call ADAS. Things like your lane keeping assist,
right? Warnings when someone's in your blind spot,
right? All that sort of advanced safety stuff. It really wasn't great. I was getting a lot of warnings. I was getting like an angry yellow triangle. I don't know why, with an exclamation point completely.
Ooh.
And then I got a couple warnings, like my headlights. Something wasn't working right with my headlights at one point, which is not ADAS. Something with regenerative braking wasn't working right. And everything ran. It was just like warning, not working up to specifications. But the thing that I didn't like about the ADAS, the lane keep assist, which will, if you drift out of your lane, kind of nudges you back in. It's supposed to nudge you back in. And it's really only supposed to do that if you're out of your lane. Right. I felt like this one was like a slap in the face, like whap. And it just, it hit you so hard that it would kind of toss me into the other lane. Yeah. Like it overcorrected. So then what I find myself doing is frantically recorrecting.
So you're just going like left and right, left and right, left and right. Oh,
yes.
Man,
and it's very aggressive enough that I wasn't, yes, you should have your hand at 9 and 2, but if you drive with one hand, if you take a hand off the steering wheel, it was aggressive enough that I felt like I couldn't ever take my other hand off the steering wheel because I wanted to be ready.
Could you at least disable the system?
I'm honestly not sure if you could. A lot of these you can't disable. You can. I didn't look into because I
feel like I'd get motion sickness in the backseat of that car.
Okay, so I got motion sick driving.
Driving the vehicle?
Okay, this is really weird. So I was driving, and two things. First of all, they have this no instrument cluster. There's an infotainment screen that's very large to the set where you think an infotainment screen would be.
Right.
And the sort of like the left third, maybe quarter of that screen is your instrument cluster.
Yep.
Takes a little getting used to. I thought I was getting a weird motion sick thing because I had to get used to shifting my eyes to the right to see the speed limit and see the various things that were coming up. And I thought, okay, I also did just fly in and it's allergy season. I must have a little sinus thing that's making me, because I'm having a little like weirdness with. Sure enough, when the reviews came out for this, several people said it made them motion sick. Oh. So I don't think, I mean, maybe
it wasn't just you.
Yeah, I attributed it to allergies, and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe it was genuinely. If other people had that same,
the car does things you don't expect. That's how you get.
Well, it does things you don't expect, and also it's the suspension system is very soft. It's not well calibrated. So like when you go over a hump, instead of sort of just like a whoosh, like it kind of settles itself. It's like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It takes a few minutes to sort of settle itself down. So you're constantly in motion in ways that I don't think your brain and everything quite likes. So that's kind of hard.
That sounds rough. I'm so sorry. I'm sad for them.
I think back now. This is many years ago. Hyundai, and when those companies came to the United States, Hyundai was thought of as a really terrible brand. Russ, it did. You remember that, right? And now Hyundai is fantastic.
Yeah,
they did it. They made it. They overcame the deficiencies that they had initially and the perceptions they had initially to become. So I have, can VinFast do it? 100%. They could.
Well, they're kind of a mega company over there, right?
I mean,
this car thing is just like a side gig.
Right. There's VinFast, there's Vin Medical, there's Vin University, there's there's a Vin Park, there's Vin Pearl, which is their hotel chains.
Right.
There's a Vin everything.
So this is just like a side thing. And so they've got the money, the resources to sort of fix this if they decide.
They have a lot of resources. Yeah. So it's not as though they're operating on a shoestring like a startup that just has to rely on investors coming in all over the place. Like they are their investor, sort of.
Right.
There's a lot of money behind VinFast. So in terms of saying like we don't have the money to stick it out and figure it out, I don't think that will be a problem for VinFast. I feel like if they decide and I feel like they're very committed to being a success here. I feel like they can, and they are I have to say, when you talk to the folks at VinFast at every level, they very much are listening. It's not like sometimes you say something an automaker will kind of really truly give you like, oh, thanks, appreciate the feedback. And they don't listen very well. You can see that they kind of think you're the one person who thinks that. Thanks for the feedback. Right. Some of them, one of the ones who's really good about feedback, Hyundai and Kia, they ask you, I want good stuff and bad stuff at the end of the drive. Tell me. Well, and look what they've done. So VinFast also, what do you think? Tell us what you think. What needs to be changed? What needs to be improved? So I think if they take the feedback, and truly, if you look online, the reviews are not kind. I'm being kind. They're not kind. Some of them are being really, really harsh.
But is at least the price good? Like, is the range solid and the price is good? You're kind of like, well, I can.
So the price, if you're going to buy one, is $50,000. I believe right now they're only available to lease. It's $414.
Does the interior feel like a $50,000 car?
No, it's not. It feels like, let's assume everything was perfect. It still feels like a $30,000 car. They've got some fit and finish issues inside that are minor. That again, just a little attention to detail could fix some of that stuff. There's some spots where they need higher quality materials. They just need to pay a little bit more attention to how they're put into the car. That's something that time could fix, right? A little more attention could fix, a little more quality control could fix. As for range, the early models have a very low range that is like, it comes in with an EPA rating under 200 miles, which is not great, but they're saying the newer ones are going to be a better range, like that 200, let's call it 250-ish, depending on exactly what you get. That's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, that's
a range that's easy to live with. Under 100 gets a little sketchy, right? People get a little nervous, even though that's still way more than
for
enough.
urban driving, it's fine, but you get range anxiety too easily.
Exactly. And people say range anxiety isn't real, but all you have to do is realize you've gone a little bit further than you thought.
Well, if you live in the suburbs and you got to drive to the airport to drop a friend off and come back, suddenly you're pretty close to it. If the traffic's rough and it's hot and using the AC and stuff.
Right. So there's a lot of, and the thing is, it's not like you can just think, well, I'll just get off at exit 10 and I'll go grab myself some gas and soda.
It's not like you can pop in.
You're like, okay, where, and in some places like California, where this is being sold right now, California can find charging stations all over. In New England, where we are, that's not the case. So charging your vehicle, if you suddenly need to charge, requires a little bit more planning. So I think the longer range sets people's mind at ease. I want VinFast to succeed. I like the company. I like their efforts. I think what they're trying to do is admirable, and I think they could. They have another one called the VF9. Comes out, they said it should be here in October. Ooh. I am really hoping, because we saw it but couldn't drive it. I am really hoping that they're going to let us drive the VF9, and then we're all going to come back and drive the VF9 and say, holy cow, they changed all the stuff for us. Hey, wait, did we just drive by a bakery? Of course not. We never drive by a bakery.
No, we go to bakeries.
We go to bakeries.
We plot routes.
Yes, and so this week, one of my favorite bakeries. This is one of your favorite bakeries too.
It is
because it's more. It's local to us. It's in our area, and it's called Crosby's Bakery.
Ah, Crosby's. They're like an institution in Nashville, New Hampshire.
It's been there forever. Yes. I looked it up, 1947.
Yeah, they've been there a long time,
and it's literally still a family-run bakery. It has been there since the 40s. It was the parents, and I think now the kids or maybe the grandkids. I don't even know where we're at.
I don't know how it changed hands somehow, but it is sort of, it's still family run. It's still a small business. And it's been there forever.
It's fantastic. And they have all sorts of like the classic stuff, like a real New England thing, like hermits. Do you know what hermits are?
Yes.
They're like little, I don't know. They're sort of molassesy kind of bars that have like nuts and raisins.
They're kind of an acquired taste.
No, but I'm saying they're like a New England thing, hardy New Englanders who are going to die in the cold.
I like hermits. The strawberry rhubarb squares.
Yeah, those are pretty good because strawberry rhubarb is another New England thing.
It is.
So they have giant cookies.
They do.
Our kids used to love the M&M cookies. They were the best.
They also have killer breakfast sandwiches.
You can get everything there. But you know what my thing? And it ties in, actually, now that I think about it. Right. Because I was with a bunch of Canadians at VinFast, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So we have a large French-Canadian population here in New Hampshire because
our welcome signs are in French.
Our welcome signs say "Bienvenue au New Hampshire."
Because we share a border with France.
Right.
I mean, France. Canada. With French Canada.
Geography is hard.
Canadians. No, that's not. No. Okay,
we'll Canadians. Okay. I'm sorry, Canada. I'm sorry, France. Yeah. I don't think that's it
Quebecians?
either.
Montrealers? No, I don't know.
Stop.
Okay, I'll stop now.
The people in Canada.
I'm sorry. We love you.
So they have a Canadian pork pie, which is it's like this minced meat, not mince meat, but like very like ground, very fine meat. And it's pork and there's like seasoning and it's in a pie crust. It's like you do chicken pot pie, you put chicken in a pie crust.
Yeah, they've always had all the good meat pies there.
It tastes better,
pie,
right? So they have Canadian pork pie, which I don't think I can get anywhere else on a reliable basis.
No, I don't. That's a pretty hard one to find.
So they have Crazy Hermits, yummy Canadian pork pie, and delicious cookies. You can even get donuts.
Oh, yeah. They have all the pastries. And our daughters have loved going there. Like I used to do these weekend trips with my daughters when they were very little. We'd go to, and then let them pick. And this was all my youngest's favorite place to go. So we would always go to Crosby's. Yeah.
I used to go, my thing to go there is to get a loaf of Vienna bread.
Yes.
And they slice it up. And I normally have the bread half eaten. I take one slice out on the way home and I tie the bag back up. And I think that I'm good. Then I unwrap the bag again and take another slice.
Because why would you not? It's delicious.
I eat one slice at a time, unwrapping and wrapping the bag.
Right.
I'll eat half a loaf of that stupid bread on the way home because it's so good, especially if it's warm. Oh, it's so good.
But they've upped their savory game. There's a lot of different soups and sandwiches now for lunch. But what's really interesting is they've added alcohol to the menu, which they inject into a wide variety of pastries.
And who's really going to complain about that drunken pastry?
Right, exactly. But their cookie game is really up now because before they'd have like a lot of those little bakery cookies you could pick. But now they've got they got the frosted cookies.
Yes.
But they have the giant M&M cookies, the giant chocolate chip cookies.
I'm all about the giant M&M cookie because when you see a giant M&M cookie and you want to see like that's the good way to judge bakery. Do you look at their M&M cookie and you have to look for a second to realize it's an M&M cookie?
No.
Like, are there like maybe 4 or 5 M&Ms on top of that thing? You look at this and there is a cookie to dough ratio or cookie to M&M ratio that is fantastic. Like, there's just tons of M&Ms.
And we've talked about this before. Like the chocolate chip cookie and the M&M cookie, they're sort of classics.
Yes.
And so a really good bakery has one, but a really, really good bakery, when you look at them in the case, the first thing you want to do is sort of dismiss them because you're like, I've had a million chocolate chip cookies. I've had a million M&M cookies. But these cookies, when you see them, you're like, but that looks amazing.
It looks amazing. And it really is. Amazing. It really is. And part of the charm of Crosby's too is or it's just Crosby, I think. When you walk in, it looks like this unassuming little nothing place from the outside.
It really does.
Like, I think the sign may have been unchanged since, well, maybe it could possibly be the same sign
I think
had.
the sign's been the same.
It has not changed at least since the 70s. So it has this it's not a fancy sign. There's nothing Instagram ready about this place. Not a single thing is Instagram ready.
Nope. But that's what makes it great.
That's what makes it great. It's kind of like looking for a seafood joint in New Hampshire.
They only just started accepting credit cards within the last year.
Right. So that's
cash
a new
only
thing.
For a long time.
So it's kind of like the more unassuming a bakery is, the better it's going to be. When they stop making it look pretty and they're more concerned with what they're making, it's the same way with seafood places. The less fancy it looks, the better the seafood. Like if there's an old ratty like lobster trap, like stuck up on the wall outside, maybe a buoy that's faded, just kind of hanging there for extra decor, like a fake ship's wheel, right? Anything like that, a picture of something that looks like the Gorton Fisherman, it's going to be really
good fish and
good
chips.
Seafood.
Yeah,
if your bakery looks like the sign hasn't changed since roughly 1947.
Right. And the guy comes out to the counter and he's got an apron on, he's covered in flour.
Right. He's covered in flour and looks like he's she's been up since 2 a.m. baking,
Yes.
then it's going to be a good
Going to be
bakery.
good. I was just there today, driving by there. We went to get bagels this morning.
Yes.
With my youngest daughter, who's again a big fan of Crosby's, and we're going by, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, Crosby's is open on Sunday now," which is also so she was just freaking out. The place is so good.
I think she
it's a
would
family
have
favorite.
readjusted. Had she realized she could go there on a Sunday, she may have changed her pick for breakfast.
But it
this
is.
morning.
So if we're in town and we need to go to a bakery, it's going to be Crosby's.
Crosby's Bakery for some cookies and coffee and Canadian pork pie.
Thanks for listening to The Road Reflected. To follow more of Nicole Wakeland's adventures, head on over to NicoleWakeland.com. There you'll find links to her social media from TikTok to Twitter, as well as her work across a wide range of media outlets. Until next time, keep it shiny side up.